Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending this session. Sharif is here to present to us today about Confluence, the ultimate guide to Confluence for software teams. Sharif has been with Atlassian coming on 10 years, so quite a veteran. And he was telling me a story before we started that about 10 years ago, a tradition on the Confluence team was each time you had a baby, or your wife did in his case, you got to log a ticket on JIRA.Atlassian.com, kind of our public feature tracking request website for your child. So if you go online to JIRA.Atlassian.com, you can find both of Sharif's children on there, and I guess they're quite a bit older now, probably not so little anymore. So that's just a fun fact about Sharif, and without further ado, I'll let him take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. How's the summit experience been? Good? Yeah? Still a bit of energy for the end of day 2. That's pretty good. As Green said, I'm Sharif Mansell, and I'm going to talk to you about, they say you're not supposed to have favorite, like you're not supposed to have favorite kids, favorite products. Confluence is my favorite. Don't tell anyone. It's between us and the whole of the internet. So I'm going to talk about Confluence, and hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a pretty good guide of all the things you can do in Confluence if you're on a software team. Confluence can be used to do a lot of things if you haven't already picked this up over the last few days. You can use it to plan projects, do knowledge-based documentation, and if more and more of your teams are doing this, it sort of eventually kind of becomes your intranet sometimes, and across many departments. So I'm really going to focus on project planning here for software teams. There will be a few things I think you could take to other different departments, but that's mostly what I'll focus on today. And I'll do that by sort of covering at a high level a software lifecycle from going all the way from an inception to planning something to building it. And then I'll spend a little bit of time at the end talking about how you can really tailor Confluence to model any of your software processes or practices that your team might have. So that's what we'll do today. A couple little housekeeping things. Everything I cover today will be for both cloud and server, so don't worry about that. There'll be a mix of screenshots from both cloud and server, so you kind of get the feel of that. Everything I'm going to show you today is possible out of the box. You won't need to get any apps or anything in a lot of detail, but it's all possible out of the box. And I'm going to show you how to customize a few of the features. Again, you can do this yourself in the product. And lastly, I'm going to mix a little bit of software best practices, little frameworks, with the actual practical of how to apply it. So I'll have a little bit of theory and a little bit of prac. Now, I will give you a word of warning in advance. The slides are very dense and lots of information. This is so that you don't have to worry about taking photos every 5 minutes, and you can hopefully use them as a reference when you go back to your teams. You can just read off the slide, and it should make sense straight away. If you do want to take photos of me, I'm more than happy to sign autographs later. That's totally fine. So let's jump straight into it, and let's start with the inception phase. So Confluence can do a lot of things in this phase, because it's quite unstructured by default. Blank page, it's super big, you can do a lot of things. It's great for capturing ideas, planning surveys, doing customer interviews, maybe creating personas, and I'll talk about personas in a second in a bit more detail. So it can help you a lot just gather ideas and discover during the discovery phase of building software. Now, I will say, when I first did this talk, it went for an hour 40. So I've been told I don't have that long for some reason. They couldn't give me an hour 40. So I've cut it down. So today I'm going to talk about the 2 of my favorites, how to do customer interviews and create personas in Confluence. If you need any information on the other stuff, email me afterwards, Twitter me, come see me afterwards, and lots of resources, so lots of stuff to share. So let's talk about customer interviews and personas during this process. So why use customer interviews and put them in Confluence? Well, hopefully your team is doing some form of research. Qualitatively, you're talking to people, taking lots of notes. And where Confluence helps here is that you can create a central shared repository where all your customer and qualitative research can go into one place. And when you do that, you get a few benefits. It's going to be easy to find and organize things for later, especially when you want to reference or jump back to an old piece of research. Hopefully, as you do more and more of this, you'll start to identify trends and different opportunities for how this might influence your roadmap, what it is you're actually building. And lastly, you'll hopefully be able to turn all these qualitative insights into some sort of action. So how do you do this? I'm going to jump to a bit of theory here now. At Atlassian, we created this framework. It's a very simple framework called the Customer Interview Pyramid. You can Google that. There's a couple of blogs on it. You'll find it straight away. And the whole purpose of this framework was to help teams, software teams in particular, turn a qualitative set of insights into some sort of action. It's a very simple framework. At the bottom of the pyramid is the minimum you have to do when you're doing customer research. So you're communicating an observation. This is, I saw the customer do this, and you go tell your team, hey, everyone, the customer did this. You're literally catching and passing information. It's the simplest thing you should be doing in any qualitative research, right? The next step up, you sort of want to group those qualitative bits of observations together and interpret a problem. So the customer was looking like they were doing A, B, C, D, and I think this might have led to this hypothesis or to this problem statement. So you kind of grouping them together and sort of understanding the problem. And then from there, as you get a few problem statements, you'll be able to connect them to possible opportunities. Think problems you might be able to solve for customers, maybe related projects or other activities you could do. That's the theory. Let's take a look at it in practical. This is a customer of ours, Applied Predictive Technologies. They were happy for me to share this interview with you. And this is one of our internal interviews with them. This is the template. So this is a custom template. We have a background section up the top, a little thing about the company. We put a photo of the company, as much context as we can, the people we interviewed. This was a remote interview here. So we just took a screenshot of them and talked about it with the team. Over there, you have the problems observed. So we're using our first macro here, the table of contents macro. And we're just saying, here are all the problems in this customer interview that we observed, and we're listing them there. So how's this framework applied? Pretty simple. The heading is the problem statement, or what we believe the problem or the hypothesis could be. So in this case, they were having trouble modeling their requirements process in Confluence. That was sort of their challenge that they're trying to solve. Below that, I list all the observations that led me or my team to conclude that this was a problem. So how did I know this? Well, this is what we saw. Maybe I can take a screenshot here and I can annotate it and show you what they're trying to do. And then I connect it to opportunities. So I can connect it to related feature requests we might have on our backlog, related prior research. Maybe I can connect it to other team members that are interested in this problem. I can mention them. Or I can link to related JIRA work. When you do that, you'll get the two-way traceability from Confluence and JIRA, and I'll show you that in a second. And you just rinse and repeat. Problem, observations, and opportunities. After you have a few of these, you may want to group them together into a space homepage or a parent page. So this is our customer interviews space. We're getting so big now, we have lots of teams that do this within their own spaces. We used to have one central space, but you may want to start with that. So you create a central space where you store all your interviews, or a separate space for different teams. And here is where we group all our interviews together, and we help everyone on our team contribute to this knowledge base that we're creating. So what do we have here? We have the live search macro. It's a macro you can put on your space homepage, searches all the content in this space. You can filter it for the current space. We have our first superhero macro. Has anyone used the create from template macro? Maybe less than a third of you. This macro, if you've created a custom template in Confluence, like the customer interview one I showed you earlier, you can put the button on a page, and when someone presses that button, they'll be taken straight to the template. So you're encouraging your team to repeat the practice or the process that you've created here. You'll notice the macro naming here is pretty not super exciting, the create from template macro. You can blame me for most of these macro names. I apologize. They're not super exciting, very verbose. But then at the bottom of the customer interview space, we have what's in this space? How do you learn more? So we have one section, popular topics, and we use labels to group by topic. So when we finish the interview, we write it up. We'll write the themes it was related for, maybe the different features they asked for, maybe the product name. And what this lets us do is when we group them all together, I can simply click on a theme, and I can see all the related customer interviews for that topic. So I want to improve Confluence notifications. I click on the notifications label, and I see all the related interviews. On the other side, we basically have a simple content by label macro that says, give me all customer interviews in this space with the label, give me all pages in this space with the label customer interview. And it just lists all the current ones there. So creating this yourself, pretty simple. You can create a customer interview template. The stuff we have in ours is the background and company info. And then that pyramid framework I talked to you about, we just model that in the template. So what's the problem? What are the observations? What are the opportunities? And we sort of repeat that a few times. Pro tips, don't forget to pull in your team members and collaborate and discuss on this. Don't forget to link to JIRA issues, and you get the traceability. And don't forget to label it. So you'll be able to group your knowledge and access it later down the track. The space template is pretty simple. The live search macro, the create from template macro, so your team can create more spaces, and the labels list macro. So hopefully with these two things, you sort of get an idea of why and how you can use customer interviews. Check out the pyramid framework. You don't need to use Confluence for that at all. You can even just try that as you're taking your own notes on a pen and paper or whatever you do. Check out the space and page template to get started there. So hopefully you're doing lots of interviews. And as you do a lot of these and you're talking to people and you're learning a lot more about them, you'll start to identify different trends and opportunities. And one of the trends you'll identify is the kinds of people that you talk to. And you'll start to build maybe generalized abstractions or archetypes or generalizations of these people, and we call these personas. I'm super curious, does everyone here use personas in their software practices? Not many. OK. So personas are really just an archetype of the kinds of users that use your software. They really help your team build a shared vocabulary and understanding of who you're building for, what their needs are, how they think, and how they feel. This becomes super critical, I have found at Atlassian. The bigger you get, or the bigger teams that you have, you need to build that common language with everyone so that everyone understands what you're doing. It helps you focus your problem, because your problem is hopefully for a particular user, so you can target the user. The solution that you're building to make sure you can test and make sure those personas that you're targeting are testing the solution that you're proposing. And you can prioritize your roadmap for particular people, because at the end of the day, it's people that use the software, right? And the last benefit you'll find here is that it helps a lot working with marketing teams. You'll build a shared vocabulary with marketing so they know who to target, what they think, what are kind of the keywords they should be looking at, that kind of stuff. So that'll help you a lot. So that's the why on personas. We love personas a lot at Atlassian. Our design team have created these little persona cards that we have in a lot of our meeting rooms. So when you do a workshop with a team, you can use them to bring the team back and say, how does this help Alana or Emma or William? And these are different kinds of people that use our software. On the back of these cards, we have common questions. You know, when you're building software, how are we thinking about this is addressing Alana's needs or William's needs, that kind of stuff. And you want to, again, build this common vocab so that it becomes, when you're having a discussion with an engineer, you can say, oh, this is for Alana, and they know exactly who Alana is and the kinds of people that Alana represents. And so you do that with a lot of reinforcement, especially in awkward places like bathrooms. This was a photo from a year ago in our San Francisco office where someone decided to stick up the personas in the bathrooms. It totally works, so you remember. It's kind of creepy. It's even more creepy when you're the guy taking the photo and then someone walks in the bathroom. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. But yes, there you go. So hopefully you've done a few of these personas. Now what you could do is create a space in Confluence that is for your company or your product's personas. So we have a space homepage. This is our personas homepage. We explain why personas are important to our engineering and product and design teams, how to use the cards, what to use them for. We have an overview of who are our personas in our software. And you can click on each persona and learn more about them. So we have a single page for each persona. This is Alana's persona page. We have a quote from her, a little bit about her. We have these visual sliders for Alana's different attitudes, how she thinks about things. Now, what's cool here is at the bottom, you'll see related interviews, because don't forget, if we're labeling our interviews with the different topics, in this case, we're labeling our interviews with the different personas, you can start to close the loop here. So you go to someone's persona page, and you can see all the related interviews, or vice versa, you can kind of come back around. So our persona template is pretty simple. A photo, some memorable quote. The photo makes a massive difference, because you'll start to, you'll help with recognition a lot. You may try the attitude sliders, about the person, behaviors, questions. If you Google how to make personas, there's so much content on this. So pick and choose what works best for you. These are the things that work for us. And then on your space homepage, explain what the value of personas is to your team, why you think it's valuable, how it helps you, give people a snapshot, and connect it back to the actual research that people are doing. So you're starting to close the loop here. So hopefully, I've shown you how you can use Confluence to better understand your customers through personas. Try the space and page template as well. A little bit later, I'll talk about how you can use personas during your requirements process and how that helps you. So a lot of things there in Inception. I've just talked about shared interviews and personas, but again, if you're interested in the other stuff, come let me know, and we'll find some resources to help you. On to the next phase of the project, the planning phase. If you had to pick a phase that Confluence really accelerates on, is most helpful in, it's this stage of your project where you're sort of planning what you might do, how you might do it, who might do it, what's the high-level roadmap, that kind of stuff. This is where Confluence helps you a lot here. It can help you with things like planning a workshop or an offsite or a session with a team where you need to do some sort of group work. It can help communicating strategy at scale, because you're broadcasting and you're getting commenting and feedback back. High-level road mapping it's great for, planning your team's availability and schedules. And lastly, it's one of its main things that customers tell me they love about it is really aligning on problems and requirements for the kind of software they want to build. Again, way too much to cover here. I'm going to focus on 3 that I hear a lot of customers get the most value out of, which is using Confluence for high-level road mapping, scheduling your team, and then aligning on what problems you want to solve and for who. So let's jump straight into it. High-level road mapping, why bother doing it? Aligns on your get your stakeholders aligned. Get them understanding what the big picture is and where you're headed. Hopefully it gives them confidence in the direction and where you're headed. And again, the awesome thing about Confluence is linking. So you can always connect to the details later. You can keep it as high level as you want, but access to all the information and the details they want, they can just click through and learn more. Before I get onto roadmaps, a word of warning. I am so not a fan of 90% of the roadmaps that I've ever seen. The roadmaps is a heavy topic. I've given a separate talk about this that's caught a bit virally, so you can go check it out, bit.ly/building roadmaps. There are many different ways to do roadmaps. Please don't think that drawing a Gantt chart-like thing with bars is the only way to think about road mapping. There's many different techniques. So we're just going to jump into one here, but I encourage you to check out the talk for a lot more detail. All right, so in Confluence, how do you do this? Well, the easiest thing to use is the roadmap macro. It's available there. If you go insert in the insert menu and macros, you can search for roadmap. You'll find it there. It has 3 key things: lanes, which are sort of like the rows in the chart; bars, which are the rectangles; and markers. That could be the milestone of some way. So again, this is less about accuracy, more about high-level stuff. And you can use linking to abstract all the detail that you want. So a quick demo. Over here is a roadmap. I can rename my lanes to anything I want. A lot of customers I see here like to use lanes for maybe the themes of the roadmap. Or if they're big enough, they'll use it for teams, and they'll have multiple teams as a lane. And these bars they will use to represent maybe an epic of work, a problem statement, or an area that needs to happen. Really try hard not to make your bars actual features that you're going to build, because that's not a good practice at all. Focus on the bigger intent. You can drag and drop to plan it, and then put the milestones in as you want. So a milestone could be a release date you're targeting, an event, so a customer milestone, so put them in. Again, high-level stuff to get your team aligned on the same page. We used to have customers asking us for, I would like a more granular week view or a day view on this. We're really trying to keep it a high-level planning tool here, not a very detailed resource planning and scheduling tool. So it's for the high-level picture. Again, don't forget you can link here to more detail. So if anyone wants the detail, they can go and dive deep. Typically, these roadmap macros, I often see them in these sort of planning, high-level strategy pages. So you'll see a roadmap on a page, and then you'll see some sort of table that articulates how are we going to tackle this roadmap. What's the plan of attack? It's typically in a table with the activities we need to do to reach this roadmap and realize it. So what do we need to do? Who needs to do it? We use mentions for that. Try the status macro. That's the green, yellow lozenges there to communicate the status. And again, don't forget to link for the detail. So it's a pretty common pattern. Helps people align on your high-level plan for your project, who's responsible for what, and where things are at. So I encourage you to check out the roadmap talk if you haven't already before you go and go crazy with your Gantt chart-looking roadmaps. Try the roadmap macro and think about where you can embed it. Awesome thing about Confluence, again, you can reuse content everywhere. So if you create a macro on one page, you can embed it in other pages using the include page macro as well. So that's road mapping. Now, road mapping is often confused with like planning, release planning, or scheduling your team, or working out what your team's doing. They both interrelate because obviously how your team's availability and what your team's doing and who's on leave, that impacts your high-level plan, doesn't it? And so it's an important thing in a software team to understand where your team is at. What are the other things your team's doing? And you want to bring in as much context of what your team is doing or where they're going to be to help you plan better software. And so your team may be there may be outages, maybe they're on travel or leave plans, maybe there's company training, maybe there's social events, and you want to create one place where everyone on your team understands where things are at. For Confluence, there's an app called Team Calendars. This is a Confluence app. It's available on the marketplace. And when you go to any given space, you'll see the calendars that the team has in that space. It'll just show an extra tab in the sidebar for calendars. Now, unlike your personal calendar, which you use to schedule meetings and that kind of stuff. Team calendars starts with a team-centric view first. So it starts by asking you, where is everyone in your team? What are they doing? So you kind of try and help yourself to understand how it all fits together. So let's dive deep here. Your classic example of what people use team calendars for. I'm on leave this week. I'm on leave next week. Here's my leave. And you can, again, link one of these bars to a Confluence page. So here's my leave plan. When I'm on leave, go talk to these people. That's available for everyone in the company to see. The other thing it's Confluence team calendars is helpful for is aligning on projects. So what you can do is pull in your JIRA releases into this calendar view, and you can drag and drop, and it'll automatically update in JIRA. Or I know many of you out there use issue due dates or dates in JIRA in general, and you can plot dates in the calendar here again and drag and drop, and it'll update straight in JIRA. For some of you, I think you've seen probably a few of the demos over the last few days. In JIRA, you can add as many custom fields as you like on the JIRA issue screen, yes. You can add multiple dates. So in team calendars, you can even plot the duration between two dates. So let's say an IT team has a outage start and outage end date. You can visualize that on a calendar as well. Pretty easy to do. And Confluence team calendars lets you add any other kind of event, whether it be a social event, a training event, an IT outage. You can add your own event, give it an icon, give it a description, and put them in one place. So your employee training, that kind of stuff. Now, you've still got your personal calendar, and you can subscribe to this calendar from your Outlook or Gmail or whatever calendar tool you use. So you can read that information from your email clients. You don't have to go and check multiple places at once. So aligning your team, check out Confluence team calendars if you have lots of people around traveling and you don't know where everyone's at, or you want to communicate sort of more release level details. Plan teams in your projects, check out the JIRA integration, and feel free to add custom events that suit what it is you're trying to track. All right, the next thing I want to talk about in the planning phase is the one everyone uses Confluence for, which is sort of requirements planning. This is great for aligning your whole team on what it is you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it, and what the problems are. Gives your team, hopefully, confidence in where you're going to head and link for more detail. Again, another disclaimer here. I hate writing requirements, which I know is really odd for a product manager to say. But if you think about it, as people who work in product teams, what is our job? If we're not engineers, what are we doing? We're really just trying to build a shared understanding with our teams of the customer, their problems, why we're doing things, and how it fits into the bigger picture of the strategy. Now, if we're doing a really good job at that, involving them in the process, quite often you actually don't have to write requirements. They sort of know what they need to do or how they might do it, or they might write stuff themselves. So again, a separate talk here, bit.ly/don't always write requirements. Just a bit of order warning, don't over-index on only having one thing you go to build a shared understanding. If I read a page and someone else reads a page, I'm sure we'll have two different interpretations of that page in some form of way. So think of all the different techniques you can do to build shared understanding. This is just one of them, not the only one you should always be doing. So Confluence comes out of the box with a requirements document. Now, in reality, software doesn't age very well, and there's many scenarios where you do need to put pen to paper and think about a problem real deeply. Maybe there's a lot of edge cases you need to think about, or it's a complex scenario, and this is where the requirements template helps. So in Confluence, when you go create, there's a requirements template there. This is out of the box, and I want to walk you through a few things in this page. So the second superhero macro I talked about, remember the first one was the create from template macro. The second one is called the page properties macro. Badly worded, sorry, that's my fault. Who's used the page properties macro? Oh, more of you. OK. Page properties macro helps you define key attributes on this page that you want to capture. And what Confluence can do with that is that you can report on that content from anywhere else in Confluence. So in this case, we have a page properties macro with a table in it of the things we want to capture for this requirements document. Who's responsible? What's the status? What's the related JIRA epic? Now, remember, Confluence, this is all customizable. You can customize this template to fit your team's process. So if you need an executive sponsor, add it as another row in the table. If you need a cost center, add another row as a table. Model it to fit your team's needs. Don't get stuck with the out-of-the-box templates. Very easy to do. So you define the key things you want to capture. Over here, then you go write your stories, and you can link for context. Now, remember, we're doing customer interviews, and we're creating personas. This is how it all starts to fit together now. So my requirements document, I can write my user stories, link to the personas that I've created in my persona space, link to the customer interviews that are related, and I'm now closing the loop. So someone on my team can understand who we're building for, what the research was, where it happened, and what we're thinking about doing. Again, bring everyone in the process. Designs, you can put designs in the page. You can open it up. You can annotate, comment on, sorry, you can't annotate yet. You can comment and give feedback on images there, give feedback to design, ask questions. Everyone on the team is doing this together, so hopefully everyone's on the same page. Now, when you create your requirements document in Confluence the first time, Confluence will create this reporting page, or we call it an index page sometimes, that summarizes all the pages of requirements in this space. And this is what it'll create for you. It's a requirements index page, if you like. Now, this uses another fancy macro called the page properties report macro. So the report macro reports on all the page properties. And all you do is you tell it, you say, I want to report on all pages that have the label requirements. In this case, Confluence will do it for you out of the box, and you can tweak it. And Confluence says, hey, give me, actually, random comment. You've noticed when people describe software, they always go into this like first-person tone of like the software talks to you. It's like, hey, I'm now looking for all pages of type requirements. Kind of random, but it's a bit strange. So Confluence does say, hey, I'm going to find all the pages that have the label requirements and list them all in the space. And that's what it does here. Now, the cool thing here is when you edit this page, you can choose the columns you want to display. And those are the rows in the tables that you had in the requirements page there. So the other thing I'll call out is if you are using Confluence for requirements, check out the Atlassian marketplace. There are so many apps to help you create more richer requirements that help you build a shared understanding with your team. From diagramming, charts, mock-ups, sequence diagrams, whatever it is, there's a lot on the marketplace that will help you build a common understanding. So back to this page here that we have with written requirements. What typically happens now is a lot of people manually copy and paste bits of this document into JIRA, or Trello, if they're using Trello as well. This is what typically happens. So what we've done with Confluence is that some pretty deep JIRA integration. You can highlight any bit of text, and you'll see there's a common icon. And if you have JIRA connected to your Confluence, you'll see a JIRA option here. This is a pretty cool feature, and what you can do is create a JIRA issue from the text you've highlighted. Now, this feature here is kind of a bit smart. AI, machine learning, smart's buzzword. But all it does here is it goes, hey, I'm in a table. There's that first-person voice again. Hey, I'm in a table. And you can create multiple issues for every row in this table. So we'll click that. And now it says, OK, I'm going to create 4 issues here. You pick your project, pick your space. And this is where you can map to your specific fields that you've got in JIRA. So you can map your JIRA issue summary across. You can map your description across. You choose your Confluence table column and what JIRA field that is. And when you hit go, it creates the JIRA issues in JIRA. And you'll see on the page there, it embeds an issue. So now you get a status update. And now you're getting a real-time update of how that story is progressing from your requirements document. Pretty cool? All right. So now when we go to JIRA, you'll get the two-way traceability. So when you open up the JIRA issue, you will see the related Confluence page for it. And so if someone's coming in from the project view first, they can still get back to the requirements document. Now, the other thing Confluence will do is if you happen to have an epic on the page, so if some of you, I know, like to group your stories into epics, it'll also pick up there's an epic, and it'll link the requirements document to that epic. So when you open up the epic in JIRA, you can see the related requirements document. Now, don't worry if you haven't done that. From JIRA as well, you can manually link from any JIRA issue or epic back to Confluence, and you get the two-way link there as well. So hopefully you've seen how Confluence requirements helps you get on the same page, the requirements template, linking to more details, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's the main thing you'd probably use Confluence for in the planning process. All right, next step is the build process. Your team's out building, shipping, doing all that kind of stuff. And during this phase, there's a lot of things that happen. 3 things Confluence can help you with here. Meetings, lots of meetings happen to update status and ad hocs and retrospectives, making decisions and reporting on progress. Again, I'm going to focus on 2 things here, how to make better decisions with Confluence. You heard some of this in Phil's talk. I'll go in a little bit more detail if those of you were at that talk. And I'll talk about progress reporting. So why use Confluence to make decisions? You really need to show people that you've made the right decision and you're getting confidence in the decision making. There's something about putting pen to paper and thinking deeply about a problem that you can articulate how you reach this decision. It helps your team build on shared knowledge. When new starters come in, they go, why did this happen? You can point people to the context. And you can align your stakeholders. So the theory here I'm going to use is the tree framework for decision making. Who has heard of this framework? A few people. Very simple framework. So at the top of the tree, you have leaf-level decisions. These decisions are really easy to reverse. If you get them wrong, it's not the end of the world. Should the button be blue or the button be red? Doesn't really matter. Make a decision. It's one line of code change. It's probably not going to cost you a lot of time. Here, you need to optimize for speed. How quick can you make sure that team is making that decision? And it doesn't really matter too much if they get it wrong, because they can iterate fast. On the other side of the scale, you've got trunk-level decisions. These are big decisions, ones that are hard to reverse, costly. Maybe they'll take a lot of time, or a lot of people, or maybe very expensive. For those decisions, you want to optimize for deep thought and lots of thinking. Now, Confluence can help you a lot somewhere in the trunk-level decisions here. Somewhere in the middle, you have branch-level decisions. I don't know what to do with this in the framework. It never made sense to me, so let's keep going. So this is an example of a trunk-level decision. Now, we've modeled this in Confluence in the product with an out-of-the-box template called the decision template, and you use the acronym the DACI, D-A-C-I. Pretty simple. Stands for driver. Who is driving this decision? Who is the person that requested it or is trying to move this decision forward? Who's the approver? One person. Who's the person that decides that this is going to happen or not? Who's contributing to the decisions, the C, the contributors? And who needs to be informed either during or after the decision? Very simple framework. I'll remind you again, don't get caught down with a framework. Tailor it to fit your needs. You can add fields to this table. If you need an executive sponsor, go add it. Whatever your company's or team's culture is, model the tool to reflect that culture. And here it's pretty simple. Talk about the background of the decision. Why? How do we come to this? What's the context? Classic example you always see in these big decision pages. What are the pro and con analysis? Pro tip, if you want to make an easy decision, just put more greens than reds, and it's easy to decide. Stakeholder walk past and go, easy, go with that one. And you're like, oh, thanks, genius. No, but really, you should actually be careful of that, because you can totally make this look any way you like. But it is a great way to have a good, healthy debate on the details of the decision. And then recommendation, actions, and next steps. Don't forget, your whole team should be involved, or the right people involved, actually, that could slow you down, to make this decision. So encourage collaboration, commenting, discussion, that kind of stuff. And again, what does Confluence do here when you use the out-of-the-box template? It creates an index page that shows you all your decisions for your project or team. Really handy, you now have a decision register. You can know which decisions are still pending, so you can go and escalate them or speed them up. They've been open for too long. If you're new on the team or project, you get the context. A reminder, this is the page properties report here. Change the columns to reflect whatever it is you like. So you can add the columns that you like, hit edit, and you can change it as you like. So hopefully I've shown you how you can use Confluence to make better decisions. Try the decisions template, modify out of the box, and hopefully that can help move your project forward. The next one I want to talk about here is progress reporting. During the build phase, what are you often doing? Communicating out to stakeholders, how are things going? Where is the project at? That kind of stuff. And Confluence is great for this because it's, a lot of people say it's a window into JIRA. So it gives you a lot of updates with context. So you can give it as much text and color and images and diagrams around to give context. You can collaborate, get feedback, and you can reach everyone in your organization. How does Confluence help you do this? In particular for JIRA, I'm going to focus on today 2 things you should be aware of. We ship out-of-the-box JIRA reporting templates and the Swiss Army knife JIRA issues macro. Let's go into each of those. The reporting templates, there are 2. One called the change log, one called the status report. Pretty simple. The change log is a static snapshot of whatever you asked JIRA to report on at that time. So if the stuff changes, it won't change. It's like, at this time, this is what happened. The status report, on contrast, is a dynamic version that will give you real-time updates of what's going on in JIRA. When you hit create, you pick change log or status report, hit next, pick whatever you're after. So this is the status report we're going to pick here. You can pick your server if you're in a server instance, pick your project, write the version you want, or any JQL query. You can give me all issues for this project, give me issues for version 5.0, only this epic, whatever it is, you can write any JQL. You hit next. Now what this will do is create a template for you of all the things it could report on for this particular release or JQL that you put in, or this project that you picked. Again, this is a template, so modify it. The goal of this feature was to help you get started with JIRA reporting. Hit edit, change it, work out the kinds of fields you want to capture, and this will report in real time. In contrast, the change log report, same thing. You go through the process, pick your project, and instead this will put a static list of where the issues are at that specific time. Really helpful for release notes, or if you're trying to understand for technical teams what changed and when. The changelog report is great for that. It captures a snapshot at the current time. So that's Jira reporting templates. They're all powered by this one macro that is insanely powerful. It's the Jira issues macro. You can create new issues from here. You can search. You can put in charts. And so it's all driven off a search. Work out what it is you want to display. You can search there. Hit display options. You can display it as you can display only one issue at a time. You can display a count. So for example, you might say there are 52 issues remaining, and it'll automatically update as developers close off issues. You can use it that way. You can put a table as well. That's the last option there, and you can pick the columns you want to display. Or you can click the charts link on the left and display all sorts of Jira charts in Confluence. So many ways you can slice and dice Jira and Confluence, so I encourage you to spend a bit of time playing with that. So Jira reporting in Confluence, a match made in heaven. Go play with it. So that's the build phase. Again, if you want to know about meetings, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. You can go Google it, or I can point you to some more things there for the build phase. Now, last thing I want to talk about is how to tailor all of this for your needs. So 2 ways you can tailor Confluence. You can modify the templates that we ship out of the box. So we have the example I showed you is requirements. Another example I showed you is decisions. Change them, modify them to meet your needs. The other way you can do is create new stuff. So I gave you 2 examples of those as well, the customer interviews and the personas. You can create new templates for your team. So whatever process you have, you can sort of model it in Confluence. How do you do this? Simple process. Create a page template in a space, go to space settings, content tools, create new template. And don't forget that superhero macro number 1, which is the page properties macro. Define the things you want to report on, create your fields, your reporting fields, and add a label. In our example, don't forget we added the customer interview label or the persona label, and then you can list them all later. So the label is the thing you use to glue the reports together. So don't forget the label. And then create your reporting page. Now this doesn't need to be a template because you only create it once, but in a space anywhere, go create a page. Now put the page properties report macro in it, and then pick the label that you want to report in. Make sense? If you want more people to create more and more of these things, use the last superhero macro, the create from template macro. So you can say create from template and link to the template that you've created. So to finish, I'm going to give you just a whole bunch of examples. I just searched our internet for anyone using the page properties macro, and I screenshotted a whole heap for you just to give you ideas of what people are doing. Our growth team used it to capture different activation experiments. They use the page properties and the page properties report macro to report on that. Our support team uses it to track the projects they're doing in support. These are the projects. This is the main ticket. What's the status? What's the description? They have a page for each of these, and they track all the detailed work in Jira. This is the high-level project they track in Confluence. Status page team have been using it to track all their custom interviews and their customer calls in one place. Again, page properties report. For Summit, a lot of our designers, this is from last year, use it to track all the assets for Summit. So they'll create a page that reports on all the assets, and they'll create a child page for every asset, the main thing they need to create, and they'll report on it on the parent page. IT teams love page properties and page properties report. They use it for runbooks. So you're all familiar with runbooks, yep. So what do I do when this happens, or it's how-tos, that kind of stuff. So they have their runbooks, and you can create new runbooks using the create from template macro, and they report on it again in one place. A whole bunch of examples from IT teams. This is another one of all the different ways you can integrate with our single sign-on solution, examples. And a bit of a meta example, our Summit team, our events team, the marketing team, Corinne and her team, have been using this to plan the tracks, everything you're hearing today. So who are the speakers? What's their topic? What are they speaking on? That's a page properties report. And this is my page here. It has who's speaking, what's the topic, and it gets all reported on the parent page. So it's a really nice way to just create a simple process, model it in the tool, and report on it in one place. So that's it for me. What did we cover today? A lot there, so let's just do a quick recap. In the inception phase, we looked at how you can use Confluence for custom interviews and personas. And there were 2 custom templates that we have created, but hopefully you'll get the slides and you'll know how to create them yourself. In the planning phase, I showed you how to use Confluence for road mapping, understanding your team's availability with team calendars, and requirements document. Again, a reminder, tailor it to fit your needs. During the build phase, you're always making decisions and you learn new things, so try the decisions template for the hard-to-reverse decisions, and use Jira reporting to communicate to the rest of your org. And lastly, just make your own. So Confluence templates plus the page properties report, and the create from template macro is a match made in heaven, in my opinion. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. I'll be at the back if you have any questions.